There's a place most people have never heard of. A narrow stretch of water, barely visible on the map. And yet, every single day, it quietly controls the flow of the world's energy. If this one route is disrupted, the consequences won't stay local. They will ripple across the entire planet. This is the Strait of Hormuz. To understand why this matters, you need to see it, because this story doesn't start with politics. It starts with geography, a narrow passage between Iran and Oman. On one side, Iran. On the other, Oman and the United Arab Emirates. It connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, and that makes it something rare. A choke point. A place where massive global flows are squeezed through a very small space. At its narrowest point, it's only about 33 kilometers wide. That's smaller than many cities. And yet, through this narrow corridor moves a critical share of the world's energy. And the actual shipping lanes, even tighter. Carefully defined paths, where massive tankers move in controlled directions. Just a few kilometers in each direction, which means there is very little room for error. There is no easy way around it, no alternative route that can simply replace this passage. If you want to move oil out of the Persian Gulf, you go through here. There is no second option. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. But this tiny passage controls something far bigger than itself. Because every day, millions of barrels of oil pass through here. But it wasn't always this important. For centuries, this was just a regional route. Fishing boats moving quietly across the water. Local traders transporting goods between nearby ports. Small-scale activity that stayed within the region. Nothing global, nothing the rest of the world depended on. No urgency, no strategic pressure. Then everything changed, because beneath this region, far below the surface, was something the world would come to depend on. Something that would reshape economies, shift global power, and redefine this narrow stretch of water. Oil. As massive reserves were discovered across the Persian Gulf, countries in this region suddenly held something the entire world needed: energy at scale. And this narrow passage became the gateway through which that energy would flow. Countries thousands of miles away became dependent on what passed through here. Not occasionally, but every single day. And suddenly, this wasn't just geography anymore. It was influence. It was leverage. It was power. Today, a huge portion of the world's oil supply moves through this single route. A constant flow that keeps industries running and economies alive. Tankers carrying energy from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates move through this narrow corridor one after another, day after day, all passing through the same route, heading toward Asia, Europe, and beyond. Connecting this small stretch of water to the entire global system. For countries like China, India, and Japan, this route isn't optional, it's essential, which means what happens here doesn't stay here. And this level of dependence creates a fragile balance. Because when so much of the world relies on a single route, any disruption, no matter how small, can trigger a chain reaction. One delay leads to another. One shortage pushes prices higher, and within days, the effects begin to spread far beyond this region. Not in theory, But in reality, ships delayed, cargo held back, oil supply disrupted, prices rising fast. And it doesn't stop there. Shipping costs begin to climb, insurance premiums surge, companies start rerouting cargo or delaying it altogether. And as uncertainty grows, markets react even faster than the disruption itself. Because in global trade, fear moves quicker than supply, and panic spreading across global markets, which turns this narrow waterway into a potential flashpoint. Right now, this is exactly what the world is watching. Signals, movements, rising tension, because even the hint of disruption can shake global confidence. And in a system this interconnected, uncertainty spreads fast. But here's the real issue. It's not just about what's happening. It's about what could happen next, because in a place this small, one move can change everything. And this is why governments, markets, and military forces watch this region so closely. Because the risk here isn't just about conflict, it's about disruption. A disruption that doesn't need to last days or weeks to have an impact. Even a few hours can send shockwaves through global systems. Because when supply is this concentrated, stability becomes fragile, and fragile systems don't need much to break. Place this small. One decision, one moment, can trigger consequences far beyond its borders. Not just for the region, but for the entire world. And that's why this narrow stretch of water matters more than most people realize. Because what happens here doesn't stay here. It spreads quietly, relentlessly, until everyone feels it. And the world is watching. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, consider subscribing for more deep dives like this.